let's start with the Destiny stuff because that was actually pretty interesting. That's the first Bungie weekly update that I've personally read in a couple of months. I've kind of listened to you guys, but I heard this one was coming out. They're talking about some of the sandbox stuff, and I actually can give you some feedback for once because I've been pretty MIA, but I want to hear your thoughts as well. Give us the quick rundown on what changed.
Those are actually a lot of changes. So the patch notes the notes that we saw this past week were pretty extensive in terms of what's going to be happening when the new season drops. But in terms of the things that are kind of spicy, I mean, there's tons of, like, almost every subclass is getting some form of an adjustment.
Yeah.
But the main things here are that Bungie decided to nerf sliding in Destiny. So from here on out, once this update drops, sliding will now give you a 20% stability debuff. 20% stability debuff.
Three things.
It will also give you 50% more flinch when you're getting shot.
Yep.
And on top of that, it will also give you 15% more pellet spread on shotguns.
Yep.
Not slug shotguns, just your buckshot shotguns. So when you slide, just to recap,
that slide shot buff, which we're going to talk about, became by far the story of this whole thing. And because the PvP players, you change the color of something on the map, they're on Twitter, they're freaking out, right? Everyone's got a take, and you know what I mean? Like, the PvP players are very vocal. I know that's, both a good thing and a bad thing. Like, I'm not condemning them for that, but that certainly completely took over the news from this. But there's a lot of other buffs, specifically, like you mentioned, a lot of subclasses were hit, right? And we had some huge, like, from a PvE player's perspective, huge PvE buffs. To give you an example, like Tash, 73% damage increase for Nova Warp in PvE, 100%
on
damage
handheld
increase for handheld Supernova.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Dude, it's like, these are like, I think Paul Tash or someone made the joke where it's like, is this Borderlands 3 now? These are Borderlands 3 buffs, like 100% damage increase. But I actually, went and I made a video about Nova Warp and talking about, like, what you can do with it, like using it again, like, because I haven't been because it's trash. You can see it's like, okay, this actually does need 100% damage buff. Like, I can see where that's actually reasonable.
Right.
So I think that kind of got lost in it. Arc Strider, 33% PvE buff and lasts longer, and has a bigger radius. So there was some really, really substantial PvE buffs to some subclasses that really needed it. And for me, like, I feel like that's going to really impact the game. You now can play Nova Warp without being a detriment to your team. Right. So that's, I think, a big deal too.
And that was actually one of the main things I took away from it. I was like, damn, I'm actually enjoying the PvE side of things more than PvP. And so I saw some of those changes and I was like, oh, that looks really good for stuff that I would want to do if I come back for Witch Queen. Like, I want to use handheld Supernova, but when you use it in the current state of the game, you're choosing between throwing a quick solar grenade and going back to my weapon, or holding it down, waiting for it to charge, doing the animation, and it's like, that's a DPS loss. So I was really excited with some of the PvE changes that were coming.
Even the 50% damage buff for hammers against
and the duration before it goes away. So there's like some hammer synergies there, right?
For like Roaring Flames hammer builds, like those are super fun. So like
standing in your sunspot and just yeeting away.
So for me, it's like that took precedent. I walked away as a PvE player going, wow, all these subclasses are now viable, right? But
no one talked about it though. No one talked about it. If I wouldn't have read that, I would have been like, wow, what a joke patch. I wouldn't have even known at all. But then the PvP side of it. So the one thing that's, everyone slides like constantly. Most good players, it just slide. It's almost too much. Like, so I can see that some people maybe don't want as much sliding or they don't like as much sliding, but also that's just kind of how people play Destiny. People play Apex like that as well. And so, if you are limiting or hindering people's ability to aim while doing movement that's built in the game, it's a little weird, and I get people's anger, but the big one for me, more than anything, is the flinch. Because there's already a lot of flinch in the game, and my biggest frustration is I don't like flinch, period. And I understand maybe you're sliding and shooting a gun is not going to be as accurate, but anything that has to do with randomization, it just tilts me more. I don't know what it is, because there's already flinch, and now there's more flinch with sliding, and maybe you should be punished, but it's just, as soon as I see the word flinch, I start getting a little salty myself. But I don't know. I get it. I kind of get it. The stability thing, what is that going to impact? Like a hand cannon is a quick shot.
Nothing.
A scout, a pulse burst. Like, is that really going to impact things? I doubt it.
It all comes down to it. It's going to change almost nothing but shotguns, quite honestly, because it's only going to be like a second long debuff. If that, I mean, it's not long.
A flash.
Most fusion rifles people are using charge in a second or more. They're not going to be affected by this, right? You're not going to start your charge the very second your butt hits the ground during a slide. So it's when you get that VOOP off, the debuff's gone, right? It's also not an accuracy penalty. It's just a stability penalty. So if you're sliding out to get a quick peek shot with a hand cannon or a sniper rifle, it doesn't affect your accuracy. You're still going to hit the target.
Just have a little bit more recoil.
You get a little more recoil on it. And that's only if that shot is during that debuff, period. So it's not going to change a lot. It isn't. People see it and they get upset about it because it's a nerf, right? All they read is nerfing slide. And to their credit, it is frustrating when you're a high-end PvP player and you've worked certain things into your repertoire, like learning how to leverage peeker's advantage and sliding into lanes. And that's just sort of second nature. It took you time to learn how to do that well. I get that. Another part of it, though, that people are kind of like, oh, some PvPers, is that this seems like it's in direct contrast to something like the Go Fast update. The Go Fast update. We understand movement is a big part of Destiny and why players love it. So here's the Go Fast update. And then fast forward, people are already dubbing this the Go Slow update. They're like, we're nerfing slide. We're taking away one of your Icarus Dash charges.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So,
yeah, you're right. But it's like, as someone who doesn't slide too much, I saw this. I was kind of like, good. You know what I mean? Like,
you just want to butt walk in a lane.
I just go side to side and I hit my shots, brother. This is the Call of Duty Battlefield mentality. Mm-hmm. I will say I totally understand that people are upset about this, but you definitely do have people like annoyingly abuse, like there's slide in, slide out, slide, or like slide towards you like 3 times. And it's just like, you just roll your eyes half the time.
Yeah. On PC, people literally have macros built that when they pull the trigger, it initiates a slide. Like, and it's like, bop, bop, bop. It's insane. I don't know how they play like that, but they are sliding more than they're strafing or moving. It's wild.
Now, the thing is, again, I do sympathize with people being like, you know what? It's like, if you're only going to do that if you're, I mean, a lower skilled player definitely does mash slide too. You know what I mean? In fairness. But I understand where it's like, okay, we're lowering the skill gap. And that's often seen as a bad thing. Especially it's like, of all the things they go after slide, it's like, when I play the game, I'm annoyed by a lot of things. And slide, honestly, isn't really one of them. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm getting truth-tellered 5 times, a minute. I'm not too concerned about the slide, dude. You know what I mean? If he's sliding with a primary, I'm thrilled, baby. I'm so happy, right?
And that's the thing. It does feel like it's very clearly just to maybe try to counter slide shotgunning. They just want to see less people aping forward with a shotgun, and truth be told, even after the shotgun nerfs, I mean, it's still the top 3 special weapons in the game right now are all shotguns.
Because it is annoying, and I say, like, again, people complain about the skill gap, but how much skill does it really take to just charge and slide and shotgun? Just the amount of like distance you can cover.
Yeah.
And even if I have a primary, if I'm using, let's say, an off-meta primary, like an auto rifle that doesn't kill in 0.8 seconds like a hand cannon, even if I hit all my shots, you have time to just run at me, slide, and shotgun me.
Yep.
If I hit every single headshot, I'm still gonna die from a considerable range. You have you can cover a long distance, and it's like, okay, is that really skill? It's like, wouldn't me be like being like jumping back, hitting headshots with my primary be more skilled than you going, I run, I slide, I shoot. That's all. Yeah. And then you win. That wins a huge amount of engagements.
It sure does.
So that's, I think, what they were trying to go after. The downside is like the stability and flinch. It's like the higher skill players will slide in a primary fight to get an edge so that you miss and they don't. And also another controversial topic here is that the stability nerf on PC, who gives a crap about 20 stability? But on console, that matters quite a bit. So people are saying it's like an indirect console nerf because the PC players can laugh off the stability like it's nothing, but the console players, that really hurts them.
Yeah, you can just flick your mouse and fix it right away. So it's like,
exactly.
Whatever.
Flinch too. Flinch is going to be a little bit more severe on console because it's going to be harder to use the thumbsticks to get back on target, whereas PC, you can just whip it down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now,
so that's another thing.
You go, Ryan?
No, I was just agreeing with him.
Oh,
go for it.
And so also, one of the things that I saw was as soon as that post went live, there's a lot of posts that are like, well, what about this exotic? What about this? And they're actually doing another post tomorrow on abilities and exotics, right?
Yeah.
So that'll be really interesting because I mean that might shake things up.
Geomags are gonna. I think they're just gonna get killed. I hope so. At least. But in PvP, I hope they kill them.
I know, but I hope they don't go too far to ruin them in PvE because they're so good, and like Chaos Reach is like the only offensive super you can justify using in like a Grandmaster. Like, what am I gonna go Striker Titan a champion and get clapped? Like, no, thank you.
But there were some patch notes for some of the abilities in the last post. So are they going even further in that?
A little bit. I think it's mainly they tweeted out DMG here. I can look it up actually.
Isn't it like cooldowns and things like that or something?
So DMG actually tweeted what they're covering in the TWAB, and he said, tomorrow we're covering exotic armor tuning, traction mod, ammo armor mods, and Warmind cells. So maybe not ability tuning. So exotic armor, traction, and mods. So
right. Yeah, because I kind of saw some of the ability tuning. Like they talked about Nova Warp, and like there's some buffs going on there.
And handheld supernova is technically an ability and all that jazz.
Right. Okay.
So
good to know.
I have to say before we move on, I am actually really excited about one of the subclass changes for PvP, and that's bottom tree Dawnblade. So one of the things I said is that anything that you set on fire, if you kill it while it's burning, it will blow up. It'll do explosive damage to anything around it, and then set anything that it touches on fire as well. So Dawn Chorus is an exotic helmet that lengthens the duration of your burns. I see this being really fun to play with, just sharing fire damage over time to multiple targets. You could couple Sunshot with it, plus the directional control to Phoenix Dive.
Right.
That was really cool.
Oh, and then what if you throw that in PvE too, like clearing mobs and you're spreading fire? Right. Damn.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't there? Didn't they? I can't remember which one. Didn't they recently add one too that increases the damage of Dawnblade swords?
That's Dawn Chorus.
Oh, that is that one. Okay, yeah.
It increases damage against burning targets.
Oh, okay. So I mean, it might be an actual pretty solid option. It was okay before, but like adding that extra damage, right?
Yeah, it actually increased your damage pretty significantly.
Mm-hmm. So
like you would do more damage within a Celestial Nighthawk with the Dawn Chorus on, but of course the downside is it took way longer to do that damage, but still.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see like all of these changes put together. I would love to see if they will make any more, statements about things like, grenade launchers and different things. Like I personally can't handle them in PvP, but I actually did see a lot of changes where I was like, okay, I kind of want to play. Not gonna lie.
It is kind of annoying though. Like hearing like the people on Twitter like another trash like update, and you're like, well, what was wrong with it? They're like, well, they nerfed sliding. And you're like, okay. You're mad because your favorite streamer is mad. Let's be honest. Okay. But like, it's like, I totally understand not agreeing with the sliding nerf. I want to make that clear. I'm not even fully for the sliding nerf. I don't know. I'm gonna have to see. But it's like, I was like talking to people, look at all these other changes. Look at the PvE changes, Nova Warp, Hammer, all these other stuff we talked about. And they're like, well, I guess. But it's like, people are just like sliding. This was the slide nerf. That's all that happened in this update. And it's like, wow. That's crazy because so much other great stuff happened. And I feel like it was all overshadowed by the slide nerf, which is kind of unfortunate.
And more that we don't know about until tomorrow. So it's like...
Exactly.
Right.
And another one, they said the last week, so not tomorrow, week after, they're talking weapons tuning.
Oh, so there is another one. Wow. Okay,
so maybe they will hit grenade launchers, and we'll find out exactly. Like, there's some PvE buffs, like to machine guns. We'll find out maybe exactly by how much, and so on.
Yeah. Well, the reality is that they needed to bring enough to the table with the launch of this next season to make it interesting, because it's going to be a long one.
Right.
This is the last season we get before Witch Queen, so
they'd better do it right, or else people are going to fall off.
If they brought no changes to the table, then it was going to be a long season.
Yeah. Yep.